towards to the soul. The rainbow bridge, we're told, unites the concrete mind with the soul and the higher abstract mind, and with the intuition, which is still higher. The intuition being called in the theosophical tradition the plane of Buddhi. All of this is united through the Antakarana, and it's something that is accomplished through the practice of meditation. It doesn't just happen through living a good life and being a good person. It has to be consciously undertaken through effort, through practice of meditation, through techniques that are given, and through the rhythmic endeavor. Because we said that the soul is in communication with its instrument through rhythmic impulse. And when we duplicate that rhythm in our own spiritual practice, we begin to mimic the effort of the soul, and that puts us into that vibratory rhythm that is identical to the soul. A little bit of dedicated effort on a regular basis, we're told, is far more useful to the soul than occasional sporadic bursts of sincere but haphazard effort. The steady rhythmic effort counts for so much. The Antakarana is called the path of return, and we must all construct it sooner or later. There's the wonderful parable in the Bible of the prodigal son who wandered far from the father's home and led a life of dissolute giving in to the life of the senses, forgetting where his home was, until finally, to satiation, he came to his senses and said, "I will arise and go to my father." That is, in a sense, the expression in parable form of the decision to build the Antakarana, to return in consciousness to our source, to our point of origin, which is our divine origin, God. We are all fragments of God, and we return via the Antakarana. Beyond the individual effort to build the Antakarana, there is the fact of the group throughout the world today, which is made up of all souls who are in process of creating their own Antakarana, or path of return in consciousness to the Father's home. And we are at a point in human evolution today that this group is becoming more and more dominant and more noticeable, we could say, a noticeable factor within human consciousness. And it's a real achievement, we're told, that makes possible the faster evolution for all of humanity. The Antakarana is that which links humanity with the kingdom of souls, the hierarchy, the masters, the illumined ones. And it is built by all dedicated spiritual workers who are intent on rejoining their consciousness with that of the kingdom of souls. There's an expression of this group from the writings of Alice Bailey that I think is so beautifully put. I'd like to just repeat it for you. She wrote, "In the many strands of light woven by the aspirants, disciples, and initiates of the world, we can see the group Antakarana gradually appearing. That bridge whereby humanity as a whole will be able to abstract itself from matter and form." She said, "This building of the Antakarana is the great and ultimate service which all true aspirants can render." The great and ultimate service. White magic is concerned, as we've said, with the unfoldment of the soul in form and its gaining of the needed experience through that unfoldment. White magic is not concerned with direct work on the level of the form itself. That, in fact, leads to the path of black magic, the manipulation of form for its own sake. White magic is concerned with the radiation of energy which works its own intended and inevitable purpose. In other words, the masters, we could say, who are the kingdom of souls, do not interfere with our human experience and our human activities by directly telling us or manipulating us about what we should do. Instead, they radiate energies of light and love into human consciousness, and those energies make impact on responsive, receptive minds and hearts. That radiation of energy takes much longer, but it is the correct and trusting way by which to bring about change and transformation. That is an example of the power of white magic, the radiation of energy rather than the direct manipulation of form. The great symbol of the soul is the etheric body. There's a term for it in the Bible. It's called the golden bowl. And the etheric body is the energy body that we are told surrounds and substands the physical body, is slightly larger than the physical body, cannot be seen or touched except by those with eyes to see, and which works through 7 basic points of contact along the spinal column, not within the spine itself, but alongside but slightly apart from the spinal column, those 7 points being called the 7 chakras or centers, which awaken as consciousness expands. And it also, the etheric body, works through the nadis, N-A-D-I-S, the subjective counterpart of the nervous system. The nadis and the chakras are the inlets or points of contact for the soul's energy pouring into the physical mechanism. It's said that when consciousness is polarized in the centers that are below the diaphragm, the base of the spine, the sacral center, the solar plexus center, at that stage the human being is living what is basically an animal life. Even though he is a human being, he is living a purely animal existence in terms of consciousness. But when the life of the personality is carried up into the higher centers, the heart, the throat, the ajna center, the head center, then the life of the soul can come down to earth. And there is a place of meeting, we could say, and there, at that moment, the magic of the soul becomes possible. It's through the etheric body and the force directed through one or other of the centers that the soul carries on its work in magic. There's one particular aspect of this equipment which is especially a resource for the soul, and it's called the third eye. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that term. I expect you probably are. It's said to be the controlling factor in all magic, the third eye. Every human being has 2 eyes, but also a third eye, which in most cases is probably unawakened, but still present. Alice Bailey said that it should be remembered that the third eye reveals the light to be found in the heart of every form of divine manifestation. Every form, not just some, but every form has a light that dwells deep within it, hidden perhaps, but seen by the third eye when it is awakened. And this spans the spectrum of evolution from the amoeba to the Christ. The amoeba being a tiny atom of light, so insignificant as to be unnoticed, the Christ being the full embodiment of the enlightened human and divine consciousness merged and fused together. The third eye is called the eye of vision. By its means, we become aware of the light in the world, and we can contact the soul aspect within all forms. This suggests to me that our goal is not to attain release from the earth, as so many people say they would like. I've heard so many people say that they hope this is their last incarnation and that they don't have to return.